Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good afternoon everybody. Militiaman and Crew. Hey, we've got a few little items today, not a whole heck of a lot, but we're going to just push on through it. Hopefully we're going to see some information that comes from some meetings that the central bank governor of Iraq has had with the United States Treasury and the U.S. Federal Reserve. Obviously, within the last few days or even today, that's hopefully been on the table. That's what's been said in print anyway. So let's see what happens. Fascinating sidebar is today that in patreon.com/MMANDCREW.com is got a little article there that talks about the Ministerial Council of Economics. And you guys know that I've talked about that for quite some time when they first started the whole thing. The stack of people that are involved are the highest people in Iraq's government. A couple of people didn't show up on the list in the meeting today. One of them was Al-Awlaq, of course, which would be expected, but Taif Sami, the finance minister, didn't show up on that list either today. So that was interesting as well. So maybe they had the same plane flight. I don't know, we'll see. But we know that there has been some circumstances, and there's an article out today about an analyst that suggested that there was some information about the 2023, 24, 25 budget that hadn't been published in the Gazette yet. It's an analyst, you guys, it's just an analyst, but said that it hadn't been done yet, right? Okay. So in other words, something was missing. And I think on the internet, people have been talking about it, and if you go to the judiciary site and do your research, you'll find that there are a few things missing. They publish things consecutively, and so you're going to find that obviously you'll see that, for instance, A74781, forgive me, is there, and subsequent number next isn't. 83 is 8456, and so forth, and then now all of a sudden there's 90. And so in that block, there's probably some things that may or may not have been posted. I haven't checked today, but the bottom line is that we know that there was at least 1 to 2 that haven't been. And you can see that on your own. But today they're on number 90 with the labor law, for instance. So obviously they're doing things or have done things to get to that number. And they haven't published it yet for some maybe sensitive reasons, we would think. So anyway, that's just, you guys can do your research on that. But that's, from the Gazette, I guess. So, hey, but Al-Mashadani, he's Mahmoud, he's an MP. He basically states that the members of the House of Representatives have approved this gentleman's candidacy for Speaker of Parliament, right? So basically, back on the 13th of this month, 2 of the alliances made a determination that Mashahadani is to be nominated for the presidency of the House of Representatives. Doesn't say he is, just says he's up for that. It says all political and popular circles are waiting to vote on the Speaker of the House of Representatives to end that era of Mohammed al-Abusi. It's been over 8 months, you guys. I think it's been 9, going a little farther than that. I call it pushing a year, because if you're over 6, you're going to be pushing into a year. So anyway, so they're waiting for a vote. I'm basically saying to myself, let's see how long that takes. They can say coming days, they can say soon, they can say lots of things in Iraq. But they haven't done it in 8 months. You go, wow, what's up with that? Is there optics involved? Are they doing this for a reason? Are they really, they can't make a decision in 8, 9 months? I don't know, that's just incredible. So basically my view is that if something's happening and there is a reason for it that we're not aware of, obviously, if Alak and Taif Sami happen to be in the United States, or maybe possibly even on their way home now, we're going to find out if these guys get this done at a special time. Remember that the Central Bank of Iraq was talking about having a celebration. They even came so far out as when we were looking for pictures and stuff, we weren't able to get a hold of those, but they came out with some that suggest that the Central Bank of Iraq is fully completed, at least up to the top floors. But as far as the interior is concerned, they don't show that. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is is that these guys are moving forward, and we have evidence to support that. And I think you guys can probably see it as well as I can. So here again, alongside Halabusi's era going away with a new gentleman for the prime minister's seat, it says here, another article says 8 months of waiting. The Iraqi budget has been held hostage. Isn't that interesting? Parliament presidency hasn't been voted on for 8 or 9 months. And here's an article that says the Iraqi budget has been held hostage for 8 months. Okay, so basically, what are they talking about? It says the impact of this delay on the economy, and this is I'm not sure if this is a political analyst gentleman I just kind of mentioned. So he says into this, it says his view, and I don't necessarily agree with this person's view because I think he's right in some things and I think he's wrong in others, and that's pretty common in a lot of literature over in the Middle East, at least in Iraq, for instance. I don't know if it's everywhere, but they do give you good and bad and keep you on your back foot. That's just pretty common. So talking about the delay on the economy and political stability in the country, it says the budget, the current year's budget was approved by the Council of Representatives 2 months ago. The tripartite budget became law and was in the Gazette back in June. I believe it might have been June 23rd, but don't hold me to that. But the bottom line was in June of last year. And ultimately they had some amendments, because remember they had amendments, then they threw it at us that they had some potential appeals, but yet the appeals were thrown out. So ultimately, I'm not so sure that those appeals were on any foundation, but I think there was an article, I'm pretty sure there was, they said something to the effect of, regardless of the situation, they were going to go through with it because it's in the benefit of the citizens. So I don't, just take it for what it's worth. Political, it says the Council of Representatives 2 months ago, but it says that it has not yet been ratified by the presidency of the Republic. Well, don't you remember that they said some things about that particular situation, that they don't have to ratify it, they don't have to do that, and there was some legal reasons for it, because they were amendments, and there was a legal process that was invoked at the very beginning to be able to amend it, so that he didn't need to sign it. Remember that? So there's a disagreement with me on that, gentlemen, for about that part. It just basically says it was something that happened because the president hadn't done that. It says it's preventing him from publishing it in the Iraqi Gazette to become implementable. And then back to the 4782, it seems to be missing. Here it says from being published, which prevents it from being published in the Gazette. Interesting. So maybe he's got part of that right. We're just going to have to wait and see. The gentleman's name is Fassan Al-Habib, and it says the country's been without a budget for 8 months. He calls the 3-year budget a lie. Okay, maybe to this degree it could be. Is there something different that's happening? Okay, so we'll see. He goes on and just says that it was subjected to illegal amendments. I think that's his opinion. Remember, he's an analyst, and we'll find out if that holds true. But obviously, the Supreme Court, I believe it was, that threw it out. It rejected it, doing anything with it. Just basically his point of view is they were doing it illegally. It was illegally manipulated by the Finance Committee and the presidency of the House of Representatives without the knowledge of most members of Parliament. So basically, I'm not going to go on to too much more. According to the analysis, the delay creates an environment of financial economic instability, which weakens the confidence of local and international investors in the Iraqi economy. It also increases the likelihood of financial administrative corruption, financial chaos. Basically, it's used to cover for illegal practices, not surprising. But all of this stuff right here is just his opinion on what's happening, but he's not necessarily wrong. But is that what's happening? It could be, but is it what's happening? I'm not really sure if he's completely 100% right. Given these facts, he says it's imperative that the Iraqi government take decisive steps to pass the budget as soon as possible. Well, obviously the budget's going to need to have an exposure of an exchange rate. And after all these months, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, why haven't they gone international at 1,310 dinar? Why haven't they been put on the Forex at 1310 so they can do all this stuff and then pay for all that stuff at 1310? Pay for all the roads and pavements and all the buildings and all the schools and stuff, and try to find investors to actually physically come in with not a freedom of capital movement. Okay, I don't think they're going to be ever going to be able to do that without having a real effective exchange rate. Don't need to get into that, but basically the federal court rejected it on Tuesday. Basically, let me think about this. This analyst, back to him, notes that implies that there's missing information that's yet to be in the published of the Gazette regarding the budget. I mean, listen, why would they be holding back critical information that would open up the investment side of the budget for the country to rock and roll, if you will, to get moving, to get that construction, to get the groundwork ready? Well, I'm pretty sure that they already have done that. I'm pretty sure they were already have the ability to do that through the Iraq 2 funds and for oil sales. All of that is in the dollar. Now, they're contractors. That could be a different. We don't know about the contracts, what they write for those contracts to be able to do that. But they've been doing things for services. We all know that. Just because this analyst says this doesn't mean it holds any weight or a lot of weight or just a little bit. It's just information, okay? It says here, a good question to me would be likely to something to the effect that, well, is it a sensitive issue that they haven't published those things? Is there a rate sensitivity that they're hiding at the moment? Is that possible? Of course it is. Is it highly likely now the time goes on? Is it why they haven't gone on the Forex? What is that? So you probably have to smile and say, wait, Al-Alaq, potentially Taif Sami could be in tow. They do things unannounced, so we have proof of that. So keep it all in mind. But hey, with respect to dealing with the United States dollar, these banks that Al-Alaq has been talking about, they're meeting supposedly today, I think it's today, with the U.S. Fed and the U.S. Treasury. But guess what? One of the curious things, we had an article yesterday or the day before that specifically stated that this meeting that they were supposed to have together was a closed meeting. So you wouldn't know if they were having it live or not, would you? Now, if it's closed, you wouldn't know that. Okay, so that's some things for all of us to chew on. I'm not nervous about this guy, the analyst. I think we have enough information to support the fact that they ultimately have a goal to open up the country to the world, and they have things that they have to take care of. So here again, this is an article that's it's on a political and investment side of things, but economic and investment, I should say. It says Al-Mandalawi, it says Iraq focuses on the economic and investment aspect through concluding bilateral international agreements. So here we're talking about international agreements, and so if you're not going to be doing international agreements because you don't have a budget and you're tainted because of it, and people are going to have no interest in investing and all that, then why do we have agreements? See what I mean? Easy to discount this particular type of article. It says the speaker, Mohsen Al-Mandalawi, he's the speaker. By the way, this guy is doing a good job as far as I can tell. He's doing a good job. He's the speaker, he's a deputy, and guess what? They've been passing laws, doing what they're supposed to be doing all this time. And again, they're doing international agreements, and he's talking about it. It says Monday, Iraq is focusing on the economic and investment aspect of concluding bilateral international agreements. So they're concluding international agreements. So obviously they know more than we do, or at least he does. Okay. He says here Iraq is currently looking forward after the security situation has stabilized and the ISIS gangs have been eliminated. What are they doing? They're focusing in on the economic and investment aspect through the solid bilateral agreements and understandings that are capable of achieving comprehensive economic development in the country. That sounds pretty bullish to me, to everybody. I'm pretty sure that the speaker is openly telling the country that Iraq is ready to focus on economic investment, security and stability is there. He speaks for the country. This guy speaks for the country when he talks because he is a deputy speaker, right, of the House. It says Iraq is ready, in my view, capable of achieving comprehensive economic development, and basically with a focus on economics. investment and the development of the country. A very good sign. So what are they going to need when they do that? I bet you we're going to have something here tonight about Turkey. Turkey's got a lot of water. Iraq needs all the water they can get, and if they're cutting deals, at least many of them, they're going to need a lot of water. But before I get to that, the Prime Minister's advisor announces new tax reform package. Basically, it says the Prime Minister's advisor, Mohammed Saleh, they have a reform process that they want to be talking about. They started doing this back in 2022, back in October, and one of their goals of the Council of Representatives was to be maximizing non-oil resources in the general budgets of Iraq, of the Republic of Iraq, and they had quantitative targets that were set. So they wanted to contribute to those total revenues generated by the non-oil economic activity. And why would they do that? Is because they're going to go from about less than 10% of their GDP to well over or up to 20%. That's a big move, you guys. It's big. But back in the past, it says we didn't even exceed 10% at best. Okay, so he goes on to say diversifying non-oil revenue resources and maximizing them in public budgets, one of the biggest reform challenges in the financial and economic fields in the country. The second factor of these challenges is related to non-oil governmental activity in generating gross domestic product, and we mean specifically the activity of the market or the private sector. You guys, there's a 68-page document by the IMF about the Article 4 consultations. Okay, you guys got to Google it if you want, but look and see just how much they talk about the private sector. It's amazing. It's packed. It really is. I don't say go read the whole document, but guess what? The reason why I'm in this investment is because I listened to the IMF and I read the IMF's documents. One of the biggest reports I've ever read, the longest one I read, and I read every page, was 198 pages. And that's where the IMF talked about $3.22. That was what the exchange rate was back in those days. And reinstatement is a legal thing. Revaluations are legal things. All right? There's no inflation, so there's not going to be a lot. All of those things are just silly to suggest that. They're going to bring value to their currency because why? Because they have valuation. So basically, if you think about some of these companies that are involved, Ernst & Young is an accounting firm, an auditing firm. They're really good with numbers. And there's some other companies out there, and one of the things I always go back and read stuff and find interesting things, because if you go to the past, then you can come to the future and you go, whoa, so they actually did something. So you guys remember one thing. If you go to the Cyan port and you talk about oil and it's been turned off, a lot of people have lost a lot of money. But you also know the government knew that would be okay, because even by being with OPEC, they could increase pumping in elsewhere to offset that revenue stream. So they weren't really hurt by the 20 or $14 billion that they lost. Those companies that are up in the Kurdistan region are the ones that kind of got pinched, okay? But then again, they had some illegal contracts potentially. They had some issues, and they have some other issues to take care of. So they needed to probably work on that for some time. And it's been, again, it's over a year that they've done that. And so what I believe is that in that Cyan report, there's a company that is in the United States that is, pretty sure it's out of Boston, but that doesn't matter. The point is, it's a global company. It's a global company, and they do, as they talk about in the IMF Article 4 consultations, is about companies that do appraisal. Appraisal means valuation to me anyway. It could mean evaluation to other countries, or depending on the definition of what you want to use it for. But the point is when you value something, it gives you an idea, well, where are you? Well, back in the old days, back when Saddam Hussein was around, when their valuations were out, they were valuing it based off of what? Oil. They didn't have non-oil revenues. Times have changed. They need to renew all that. So I wouldn't be surprised if you guys knew and saw what's in patreon.com with Patreon and Militiaman Discord chat room. You're going to find that back in 2023, they talk about companies like this, okay? And so they've had plenty of time to do some research and analysis to do what? provide potentially an appraisal for the proper people that need to know the numbers. Okay? And do you think that at this stage of the game that if they were needing to have numbers to do what they're going to do, the projects delete the zeros, I think Al-Alaq would probably have a good idea what those numbers are. So let's see what happens. Let's just see if I'm even close to being accurate. But I got a good strong feeling that some of the news, if you go through their news, I get it from these folks that have been printing it for a couple of years now, specifically with our Patreon forum. Outside of what I did 7 or 8 years ahead of that, you guys can see that a lot of this information, we've all grown to see the changes. So stay focused, everybody. It's really looking good. Just a couple more pages of stuff. I said the finalizing of the industrial investment law. It's brief, but the bottom line is this approval of this law will contribute greatly to moving the wheel of the Iraqi economy as it grants great privileges and guarantees investors in the industrial sector. So the approval of the law, wow, pretty fascinating. It says, here it says, noting that if the law is approved, it will have a positive impact on the labor market by providing many jobs for young people within the country, all about services. His committee has put the final touches to approve the industrial investment law soon in the House of Representatives, as it's one of the important laws. So it's a little bit says that the approval of it, okay, it hasn't quite been there yet, but is it ready? Well, that's the good thing about Mandelawi. Mandelawi is legal. He has the legal authority to pass laws. It's in their constitution. So under the speaker's directives, his abilities and legal authority, things are all still pushing forward. It's phenomenal. Even like I said, you take some of the bad, mix it with the good, and realize it's just because some of the bad comes out that some folks like to focus in on. And I have to give you a little bit, but that's okay because I can see that there's some really good in it. Because he wasn't all the way wrong, if you remember what I said. So you got to take in the good and throw out the bad, and that's mostly what we do anyway. Because you know what? Who wants to listen to some of the Western news medias? Because you can find negative real easy. Doesn't take much, as you all know. I'm sure of it. Parliament is continuing to pass important laws until the new president is chosen. Oh, so the deputy, that's what they say. So now they're just reiterating what I just said. It's fascinating. Continuing to pass important laws until a new Speaker of the House of Representatives is chosen. So Mr. Allah al-Hadari, he's part of the House of Representatives. He's reminding people. It says the council will continue to hold regular sessions headed by Mandelawi to complete the draft laws proposed by the parliamentary committees. So basically, at the end of the day, Mandelawi will continue to run the regular sessions until the issue of the seat of the Sunni component of the presidency of parliament is resolved. I don't know, you guys. I have to say, this guy, I think they should have him stick around because he gets things done. Waiting for the Sunnis to get their act together to give us a president. It's like they're just dragging their feet in the sand. It's silly, but that's where they are. Okay, so here it is, launching the first package of water projects within the Iraqi-Turkish agreement. You guys realize that when you build a country and you build a subdivision, how about this? Start off with a subdivision. What do you got to do? Plan, specs. Hey, is it feasible? You got to have a company that does an appraisal, a feasibility study, if you will, right? And what are they going to look for? They're going to, how much is it going to cost for sewage? Is it pliable? How do we survey the land? How many houses? What makes the most sense? Or how many gas stations? All of these different things in a subdivision that you might need, right? Everything to support a community. Water, sewage, electricity, all of that comes into a feasibility study. And that's just a subdivision. Try to do a country. There's experts out there that do it. And I know that for a fact. So anyway, first package of water irrigation projects within the framework agreement signed with Turkey. So the Prime Minister says he directed today, Monday, to launch the first package. So Al-Sudani's saying this. He says he chaired a meeting dedicated to discuss the first package of water projects within the framework agreement between Iraq and Turkey, signed between the two sides last April. which includes 13 projects in addition to projects that fall within the investment plan. So here they are, launching projects will basically provide new management for the water file. And he says that the launch of the first package of projects, especially with the availability of allocated amounts, as well as the formation of the specialized technical team in the Ministry of Water Resources based on the joint agreement. They'll handle what? Technical matters, all the archiving and communication information issues, especially with the Turkish side, to make use of the expertise available to them. So ultimately, they've got 13 projects. The groundwork must be completed by now by having all of this. It's now implementation time, as far as I can tell. Launching the projects is going to have a new management for the water file. New management. They got things ready to go, rocking and rolling. Truly a good sign for Iraq is headed to what? They're going to open up the country to the world. If they're going to be doing this development road project, like they said, they're going to completely open it up for trade. They're going to finish the tunnels, the underwater tunnels, to get from the port of Fa and the road to go into Turkey. All that. It's fascinating, you guys. So thank you for being with me. Kind of a little bit fast and furious, not so much, but hey, I'm glad you're with us. Thanks again, everybody. And all you guys that realize that it does take a team to put this together, and those donations really do help to keep everybody in the groove. So keep it up. Thank you very much. And by the way, if you really do like the content, hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running.